Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Good evening. On this evening we have Jim Coffey's coming in at 6:15. We got an RSA 91A and road maintenance. 7 o'clock, deliberative session discussion. 7:30, we have a non-public session on tax deeded property. So Kerry, what would you like to discuss this evening?
Okay, I would like to introduce Mary Drew from
Hi,
Reality
Mary.
Check in Jaffrey.
Hi.
And she.
And what is Reality Check?
You want to go into?
Sure.
that?
I have a brochure here. Reality Check is a nonprofit that I founded in 2009, and in 2016 I wrote a grant to the White House Office of National Drug Control Policy, and we were granted a 5-year grant to do prevention in school districts, Messinic being one of them. We also do Conval and the Jaffrey Ridge School District as well. In addition to school district prevention, we also provide treatment, counseling at our recovery center in Jaffrey, as well as recovery coaches to help people find and stay in recovery. And then we just recently signed a contract with Monadnock Community Hospital to provide recovery coaches in their emergency room, in their family medicine, pediatrics, behavioral health, and internal medicine departments. It's an on-call recovery coach program, so when doctors or other staff find that somebody might have an issue with substance use, they'll refer them to an on-call coach who will then be dispatched to offer intervention services. So in the school, do you want me to just get right into it?
Sure.
We did an evidence-based prevention education curriculum called All Stars in the middle school last year. We had put out about $3,000 in curriculum materials to get the trainers facilitated and in participant materials. This is the email. I don't know if you all got a copy of it. Looks like you did. Yep. That was sent back in September, and I understand kind of just got lost in the shuffle, but so we had engaged, I think, around 250 kids in that curriculum for the 12 weeks that we put it on. Heather Carrigan, who is a New Ipswich resident, is also a parent, and she volunteered to implement that for us and helped to get 5 Boynton staff members trained in it as well. So they're also doing it this year because we had purchased enough curriculum and materials for participants and trainers to do it for 2 years. We're in year 4 of that 5-year grant, and we're still covering the Scenic District for another year. And then at the end of that, we have another chance to apply for a second 5-year cycle, which we would still be able to continue prevention services K through 12. We're looking to provide one at the high school. They were interested last year. And there's a life skills training curriculum that's more geared toward grades 9 through 12. It helps them, teaches them the things that are kind of non-academic, money skills and credit cards and the hygiene and communication skills, crisis resolution skills, emotional regulation, things like that. So it's like non-academic stuff. So we're here. We get support from the town of Jaffrey. They pay us $2 per person, and we get support from the town of Ringe at $1 a person. We're asking each town that we provide services in to help, and we've asked this year the town of New Ipswich for $1 per person to be able to continue to provide these the prevention curriculum in the school district. But also, it's not just prevention that we offer; it's more outpatient treatment and recovery coaches for kids that might be already struggling with substance use or addiction.
Questions or comments?
Well, I mean, I'd love to help your program, but don't we already have a budget pretty well set in place?
Well, this would be on a warrant article anyway. And also I understand that some of this is going towards helping kids that are already having issues. But as this is a school-based program, I would see this as something that the school would put as one of their warrant articles, not the town.
That's kind of where I was heading with this, is that why would, have you not approached the school board?
I don't go to the school board because it's not just services for the school that we provide. We provide all kinds of trainings for community members and events. It's not just prevention, it's also treatment, intervention, and recovery support services for community members.
But I was trying to listen carefully to what you were explaining, and it all seemed to be student-driven, whether it was drug intervention or
It's community members at large, right?
how many community members has your organization served from the town of New Ipswich?
I'd have to look in the past year. Our fiscal year is October to September, but in the I would say maybe 10 to 12 people from New Ipswich.
Okay. I would
Not
suggest
including the students.
that you try and tackle that as a twofold, maybe for the next budget year, and broach the school, because we look at it, I think from memory, we've only allocated 10 grand?
Yeah, $9,500.
$9,500 for different groups, and so no one's near a $5,000 figure. And since it seems that, would I be accurate in saying 90% of your work then is focused on the students?
No, we have a grant from the governor's office to do, we train employers in the Monadnock region.
But I'm talking in
Recovery
New Ipswich, in New Ipswich.
At the moment, probably.
Yeah.
So yeah, I agree with Dave. What I would say is maybe, make sure that we get a request in prior to budget season so we can put you into consideration for the community services that we do supply. But then I would suggest, if you're looking for money, particularly to grow a program within the schools, like you said, $3,000 last year, and you're looking to expand that into the high school this year, I would approach the school board, just have them put a warrant article on to help raise money specific to. I understand the program. My wife is actually one of the all-star coaches at the middle school, so I understand the program. But considering that it is aimed, at least right now, these programs are aimed primarily at the school age. That would be my suggestion as well. But knowing that, there may be 10 to 12 people outside of the school that have been serviced, those are the numbers that we look at, is how many people are serviced by the different programs, and then we budget that way on how that happens. So I would say maybe split, have the school do a large chunk and have the town do some as well. But it would have to be prior to our budget season, because we've already posted that warrant article at this point.
And when is that?
Usually if you can get that documentation in by the end of September, beginning of October, that's when we're usually into that budget.
If you're looking to include in the budget, I would say your drop dead date is probably about the 15th of October. And if you're looking for a warrant article, I would look at early December for submission to this board to get funds.
Okay.
Which you did.
Which I-
She submitted it in time, early enough. It just
Right, so
fell
she's,
through the cracks.
Oh,
Right,
That's what happened. So, and Joanne had gotten back to her and said that it would be reviewed for this year's budget.
I don't recall seeing it, but
yeah.
so, well, but
She
I
did
went
this-
back through to see what happened to it, and it was not in the administrator's inbox. However, I did find in the sent folder Joanne's response. So why it wasn't in the inbox, I mean,
What was that
it was
for?
certainly before my time, but I would not have been aware of it, so that we could have considered it this year.
Yeah, but I would also say is that, as Selectman Visa pointed out, typically we're looking, when we receive requests for contributions, we've always asked them, well, how many people do you serve from New Ipswich? And that's kind of how we gauge yes or no, and then how much to allocate for each different group. So if numbers increase for services that you're providing other than to the school, that I would say that's what you should try and highlight.
And the other thing is public awareness of your program. Before this evening, I wasn't even aware of your program, so if you possibly wanted to post something on our website that this program's available, you should get in touch with Scott or possibly Lori out at the front there, so you could post a little blurb that this program is available to the residents.
We just, it was in the newspaper, we just received a nonprofit of the year
Mhm.
award. Did you see that?
I don't recall seeing it.
Yes, I did see that.
You know, it's definitely something on the rise and something we really wanna, you know, help out for sure, because obviously drug and alcoholism is a problem.
It's not just drug and alcohol, we also do suicide trainings and
That too.
a lot of mental health trainings for staff as well, to try to teach them how to deal with kids that are having issues. Okay, that's my
Thank you so
report.
much. Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys. Thank you.
Mr. Coffey, how are you?
I am fine.
I see you asked for time on the agenda for RSA 91A and road maintenance discussions.
Yeah, and you can throw in 32.5 also. The whole thing should take no more than 6 minutes. Because you're gonna send me on my way. I just wanna make a point.
What's 32.5?
That's budget preparation.
Oh, okay.
Can we start there? It's real quick.
Sure.
I looked at the posted budget online. And looking at Article 2, at the budget hearing, Article 2 was $2,501,648. You posted a different amount. It's illegal. Period. 32.5, right here. You can't do that. You can go to the deliberative session and do whatever you want, as long as you don't bring in a new subject. But you can't change the number. I will admit that at the hearing, there was, and I've gone back and looked at the video over again, okay? There was discussion that maybe we don't have all the final numbers yet, but you can't conjure them up a day or two later. And so my understanding was that, you know, at the deliberative session, somebody was gonna get up and add, I don't know, $3,000, $4,000, $2,000 to this thing. And the worst part is they have to explain why they're doing it, otherwise it would disappear probably, but you can't change that.
Which one was that?
It was the patriotic purposes, the number didn't carry over.
On the spreadsheet.
On the spreadsheet, it didn't
2460.
carry it.
And that was discussed at the hearing, so it was made.
But it was never added into it. The amount was nebulous.
If we don't have an amount, Jim, and we know that we're missing that particular amount, how would you suggest we proceed?
Well,
So
well,
what,
we're gonna do it the same way we're gonna do the interest, is we're gonna make a motion at the hearing to add it in.
Yeah, what you can't do is you couldn't add a whole subject in. Okay.
Yeah,
Okay, well, and I'm not saying this to be negative, I'm just sitting here looking at this thing and it jumped out at me, okay? So I think you need to fix the posting.
well, I was gonna ask you, when you said that, which posting were you looking at?
Well, I couldn't look at one out here because I couldn't find one. I looked at the latest one online, the one currently online.
Did the
I would have gone to the
revised one
post.
get posted?
So
It
the,
says 2,504,000, I think it
Yep,
said.
2,504,108.
right,
Okay.
which, if you look at the original spreadsheet that was handed out at the budget hearing, which we discussed, that it didn't, the $2,460 for patriotic purposes didn't get told in that
Yeah.
number.
That
It
night,
was-
this number didn't
It
get
was
pulled
discussed
over
at the
here.
budget hearing that that had to be added to that
So you
amount,
had a different number.
which is
Nobody added
exactly what the difference
Yeah.
is.
Nobody
we had-
added it, nobody added a fixed
We had
amount.
2,501.
Okay,
To my
okay,
recollection.
okay.
In other words, the article that you showed at the budget
Yeah.
hearing
Correct, I've got it right here.
was different.
This is it right here. This is the
Mhm.
one. And if you look at the column for patriotic purposes, in this column, as department head's budget is requested 2,460, it, just because of a formula error, it did not carry over to the total column, and we discussed that at the budget hearing, that had happened, so I felt that it was clear to everybody in the audience that night that $2,460
What was
was,
clear to me was that something had to be fixed.
so, well,
But I think it should have been fixed by the board at the budget hearing. They should have
I-
voted to change the number on the sheet. And the other thing that was missing at the budget hearing was it's a gross budget. There was not much discussion on revenues other than the block grant.
We'll discuss that at the deliberative session.
Well, you're supposed to discuss it at the budget hearing.
I'm just saying, we will discuss it at the,
Okay. And the other, let's see, the other question I have is,
so before you go on, I just wanna,
I'm just making a point.
no, and they're very good points. Do you think, just for clarity's sake, that we treat that patriotic purposes as a clarification of the deliberative session?
Yes,
To say, you know,
Absolutely.
some people are unclear, and we will. And
I'm not trying to destroy the town meeting, because I know what happens if something goes amiss. You hold another SB2 town meeting to cure the defects of the previous one. There's a town north of here that did it 2 years in a row because guess what? They were a day late and $1 short on their bond notices, okay? Which is what you could have done. You could have played dumb and then said, now we gotta fix it, but you did the right
do
thing.
that.
Okay. The thing that to me is more important is how you budget labor expenses. I think your interpretation of 91A, 3, Roman numeral 2, Part A, I don't think it's correct. And that is, this is what you've told me, I just want to get a clarification on it.
Yeah.
Because I will go somewhere with this, but I want to know what your take is, okay? The dismissal, promotion, or compensation of any public employee, or the disciplining of such employee, or the investigation of any charge against him or her, unless the employee effective, 1, has a right to a meeting, and 2, requests that the meeting be open, in which case the request shall be granted. That's what you told me. And under that, if I understood what you said to me, is that you can go into, in the case of the meeting I came to, you spent more time in a non-public session after we left than you did at the meeting, okay? Talking about wages, person by person by person. That's how I got it.
By position, not by person.
I don't think you have the
No.
right to do this.
Oh.
No, we did by person, because if we do it by position, and I understand what Jim's saying, is if we're just talking about funding a position, then that is public. We were talking about the individual people because based on the proposal from Scott as town administrator, he put forth a dollar amount that he felt the position should be paid. And since that is not the way we approach payment, we approach it by the individual.
Yes,
It was then
yes,
behind
okay.
closed
Yep,
doors.
yep.
So Scott's discussion, when he proposed the budget, was in open session and the dollar figure was put out. Then, in closed session, with the selectmen and Scott, we discussed based on his recommendation, where we felt those people would fall into a range that he had proposed to us. So he proposed a range in his budget. We then went back in closed session and discussed the individual person and why we felt they should fall within a certain aspect within that range. That is why it was behind closed doors. His range was presented in open session. Once we narrowed it down, then we were discussing individuals, and we were talking about, we're basically, giving our reasons to Scott on why we were going to justify our budget for the town office that he proposed back to us.
And I'm not here because,
Mhm.
I'm here because I saw something, but I'm not here because it was the town office. You could have been doing a highway department, the police department,
Mm-hmm.
the recreation department. It doesn't matter. Nobody sent me here.
Mm-hmm.
Have you ever advanced that logic to your town attorney? To see what their opinion is? Because there's only one way to get an opinion on this. And I'm gonna get one.
Get one, let us know.
I
It's
think,
not asking somebody.
I think what we are is we're just overly cautious about naming any names
But
in
once you-
a discussion.
I understand that, but once you get into this, okay, and now you're talking about that person, and this may sound wacko, but you got a whole long line of people. Should they all be sitting out here in chairs waiting to come in, and you should be going in and out? I mean, you're talking about a person's characteristics, work habits. You're talking about their skills. I assume that's the only reason you can go in there. Okay, you can't go in there just because I think it's worth this much or that much.
Sure you can. The RSA that you just read said compensation. How do you
If
not
you read-
interpret that?
How?
Yeah,
I read it as though it's person-specific. It is not a budgeting process.
It was person specific, and again,
You're
this
in a budgeting process.
and
how do you
exactly.
get to the budget process if you don't have that information? You need to know what you're going to pay an individual so that you put it in the budget.
We don't, because you don't, I am not going to put in an inflated dollar amount just because it's the range that
I
position can be
I
paid.
understand that.
So we have to discuss the individual so that we can set a budget for the next year. So we were discussing the individuals so we could write in a total dollar amount for the budget.
But maybe the individual should have been there.
Why? Why?
You're-
We're not negotiating. This is what we're going to offer.
Okay.
Did you ever do it? You've sat in this chair.
Not quite like that, no.
Would you ever bring in an employee in during budget season to say, bring in every employee and, well, what do you think you should be getting paid? And that's what we're gonna
I
put
didn't-
in?
I can't recall going into a lot of
Yeah.
non-public sessions. I was a selectman years ago.
Process
As a
hasn't
person working
changed.
for a town, I've never done that. Never.
You wouldn't have done it even, are you saying that you don't do it working for a town? Correct.
I don't do it. And the towns I work for don't do it. If they're gonna talk about a person, okay, then they're gonna talk about that person separately, uniquely. It may factor into a person's evaluation, may factor into what you pay them, especially if you have a department head in a large town or something like that.
But do
Yeah.
you do that in a non-public or in a
No,
public?
you do that in a non-public session.
Okay,
You're talking
okay.
about, but that's an evaluation, okay?
No, I'm not trying, we do our evaluations already, those
I know you
would,
do evaluations separate.
Right.
so I'm just asking you, point blank, Jim, in your role as a town administrator in another town, if you were going to be addressing hourly rates of a specific
Publicly.
individual, you do it publicly?
We don't talk about the person's good points and bad points, we talk about.
No, but again, it's we're talking about individuals, and under RSA 91, if we're talking about the individual, the compensation for an individual, that can be done in non-public session.
And I understand exactly what the language is, okay? But you're also doing it in mass, you're doing it in bulk, okay? Well, you may go one person at a time, okay? But you're having one non-public session to do a whole mess of people. Yes,
That's not accurate.
how else are you doing it?
Without naming names, we were discussing specific aspects of the operation of the town. And we were interested in how the duties of that individual were described, or what duties they were actually performing. We were not characterizing any individuals, we were not
Not
evaluating performances.
We were talking about the execution of their duties, how they were, and based on the reviews we had already given them, and then using those reviews that we've already given them, that they've already received and signed off on, and then going forward to set their pay rate so that we can then budget.
Okay, we're long beyond the 6 minutes.
Okay.
Okay.
But
And I think there was a
didn't
third
mean- Okay, but that's fine. What I really want is your explanations.
Okay. Did you get
And
it?
I now have them recorded, okay, so that's what I came here for.
Okay.
Because I disagree with your interpretation, because you can't mix public, in a non-public session, you can't bring in things that should be in the public. You have to stick to the non-public piece of it.
Mhm.
And I'm suggesting that if you're doing budgeting, you're over the line. But that's for somebody else to decide, not me. Okay. The other thing I have is, this got to do with road maintenance on Wilson Hill Road. I have a picture, which I'm not equipped to put up in your big screen camera, but anyway. If you can envision plopping down a load of crushed stone near the end of my driveway, and then having the plow truck go by. I got half the stone is sitting on the side of the road. I mean, what do I do with it? I got it right here. There it is. Ryan, will you testify that that looks like stone in the snowbank? Yeah. Okay. So I got a witness here, but if you'd like to see it. I mean, this is a waste of stone. And it's not a right way to.
All I can tell you is, as far as they put stone down on my road to do the same thing, and the plow truck didn't plow it over into the shoulder. So
They do it all the time. If you go down the shoulder of the road, there's a dip there. There's a dike on either side of the road. You know what it's made out of? The material that belongs in the road.
yeah.
So what I'm
Well,
suggesting,
it's a dirt road though.
I know that.
I have a question for you.
I know that. But you know what? You come back in the spring and pull all that stuff back out and put it on the road. That's how you make, but they don't. They throw more material down on the road.
Because normally there's a bunch of junk in there. But anyhow, my question for you is, when they put the stone down on your road, did it improve it any?
No. No.
It didn't.
Tell them
It
to
didn't.
cross Wilson Hill off that list.
Yeah.
It didn't improve it.
It didn't help keep
But
the mud
let me
for
tell
so
you
you wouldn't
what
rut
would
it so you
improve
wouldn't rut it down anymore.
I'm in a low spot that gets muddy.
Mm-hmm.
And unbeknownst to me, when I put my driveway in and I put the pipe across on my side of the stone wall, okay? We also put a pipe across going the other side, because there was some remnants of something there. I go up the road a little bit, just where it's a little bit lower, and there's a culvert there that nobody's cleaned in 100 years. It flows, but very slowly. And so between my house and Eric Crook's, most of it is probably on his property, we have a lake.
Now, as an assessor, you assessing you for waterfront views?
No, we got it for wetlands, we reduced it to $100 an acre. Okay. But I think the road needs to be looked at.
Didn't you and Peter meet on that? Because you've been in here before for that. And you and Peter were supposed to have met.
I showed one of the employees, I'm not gonna name anybody out there,
But
where
not
it is.
Peter, not Peter.
Not Peter. Okay. So if you would have somebody, I know they're busy, okay, but there is a pathway there where if water went in and water goes out, okay?
And you're saying it's between you and Mr. Crook?
Yes, and I'm not sure, it's real near the property line. The flooding does come onto the edge of my property, but Mr. Crook has more of it than I do. Okay, but the fact is, what we have is a backed up culvert over here, and when I come down to my driveway, I got water bubbling out of the ground from this thing, because when it reaches a certain height, here it comes, and then it comes down here and out there. And he owns across the street. I don't intend to speak for him or anything like that, but it does make a bigger mess having the water going all over the place. And lastly, on that road, I would suggest you consider paving it or using, paving at least 80% of it.
Yeah, all in due time.
Not the whole road, because at the one end of it, paving it, I think, would be impractical.
Really?
Because it snakes around through some buildings by somebody's house, and you'd probably have somebody drive too fast there, but the rest of the road could be paved. Or you could consider using a geotextile or something like that and improve the drainage. But part of the problem with the road is I wind up with these windrows on either side, and it keeps the water in the road, turns the road into a brook. And I followed a plow truck on Route 123 in Stoddard, a state plow truck. And when he came to a couple of driveways, one in particular where the guy had just finished plowing it out, he moved to the left, he lifted the wing, he went by, he moved over, he went down. And I know it can be done. You can't do it everywhere all the time, but there's no need to throw a pile of rocks at the end of my driveway, because I got a snow blower, and I don't care where those rocks go. So, if you'd hold off on the rocks, please. Half of them are now on the side of the road, well, 20% anyway.
I'm sure that was not their intent.
No, I know what their intent was, and I've seen rocks used effectively on dirt roads when they get mushy and soft.
So it must have had a benefit, because I don't think Peter would have gone to put stone down on a road that was already rigid.
It had a benefit only through traffic. The three houses at the other end of the road, if the road was too muddy, we'd just go out the other way. For me, over, we'd just go out this way. And the mud hole could stay there. And it wasn't much worse than some of the other
Didn't you tell me
mudslides.
the school buses go down that road?
Yes, and I'd like to ask you to have them get off the road, because they don't make any pickups or deliveries on the road.
You're talking the wrong department.
You have to talk to the school on that one.
No.
Yes.
You put a weight limit for the winter of 20,000 pounds on there, the school bus is 29,000.
Right, but the school, yeah, but there's certain things that have
Exempt
exceptions.
from road postings.
Yeah.
School buses, oil delivery trucks.
I understand that.
What was the
But
other?
I
I
question
think
why they
garbage.
have to go that
Yeah.
way.
Okay. We'll try and get the culvert issue addressed.
But I think if you got the water to drain out, it would help.
Well, by the way, when the
I can show somebody exactly what a culvert is.
question for you though, if that culvert were clear, where does it dump the water?
Across the road,
Where there's nobody.
there's nobody there. It's already putting the water across the road. The path is
Is there
there.
a culvert, swale there that it drains to? Or should drain to?
Well, it sort of runs across the woods and forms its own channel,
Okay,
okay?
okay.
It's an existing culvert. It doesn't go into anybody's lawn. It goes into a lot that's wet that my neighbor owns, Mr. Crook owns. So he's already got the water.
All right.
But I think what happens is by having that water there, it permeates the whole area.
Yeah,
And
gotta
so
get it out of there.
underneath the road, you got,
More mud.
yes.
Good. Thank
Okay,
you.
thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, before we leave RSA 91A, I got a couple comments to make on it. One, if we're gonna hold a non-public session, it should be the last item on the agenda after other business, because we videotape these discussions for the general, and if we go to other business
We
after.
typically always have had as the
I
last
know,
item.
but I'm just saying, we should list that on the agenda as the last item, not, it should be after other business, not before other business.
No, because when you go into the non-public session and you come out, if there's any decisions that are made, you need to make them, that's why.
But what I'm saying is if we go into other business, when we come out of the session, then we talk about other things, which we habitually do, it's not being videotaped for the public.
We don't habitually do it, Bert.
We do.
Okay.
We've done it
Why
almost
don't
every
you
time.
do me a favor, for next week's meeting, please bring in the meeting minutes.
I shall, I
Thank you.
shall. Now, number two, I want to make sure it's properly noticed. If we are going to put a non-public session on the agenda, we need to at least have a basic description. You do on this particular one, tax deeded property, but in some cases, all it says is non-public session. It does not give a resident or whoever it might involve the chance to respond or the general public to respond. And finally, if an individual is involved and we're going to discuss a particular individual, that individual should be informed that we are having a non-public session. They should be afforded the opportunity to discuss it with the board or be present if we're discussing it for something other than a litigation.
That's only if it's gonna be a reprimand or whatever. If we were discussing an issue with, about a certain employee, how we're going to, let's say hypothetically, put together a improvement plan for them. We could have that non-public with, about that employee to develop that plan, to then have them in another non-public. They're not, it's not black and white, Bert.
It is not. It is
And there's
not
not-
absolutely black and white, but we've been overusing 91A extensively. We have to maintain additional transparency, and this board has been criticized on multiple occasions for lack of transparency and lack of communication.
Okay, Bert, you constantly come out with these comments. Please, please, I've asked you numerous times in the past, present the facts. Bring the paperwork in, and then we can address it.
Dave, you are the master of the lack of documentation. You never document anything. So,
Excuse me, Bert, where are your notes?
I got my 91A right here.
And I've
I'm
got my
just
notes
reading it.
here. What meeting would you like to discuss?
I have seen it constantly, Dave. Constantly.
Bert, then bring in your notes, let's
I
address
will bring
it.
in the notes
There's no
and
need
we'll
to argue
go
over it.
through.
Bring it in, then we can address it.
But we really do need to minimize our uses of 91A. Thank you.
Is there any-
Brian.
Is it, yeah, I had a few issues, but I don't know if I can, the main one that I want to ask for tonight is, how much money do we have in our fund balance?
You wanna know exactly, or do you wanna know?
Well, I want to know close, I don't have to be down any payments.
12/31/2019.
I was gonna say 1.2 million.
Was it, I was at the budget hearing and I understand
Isn't
that.
it 1.2
No.
million?
No, because that's what we're gonna take out, wasn't it?
No,
No,
we're taking out 500.
500, okay. 1.2, yeah.
Okay, I was at the budget hearing, and I understand that we didn't get any of that money to offset taxes last year, is that correct?
Correct. We didn't use fund balance to offset tax rate
Correct.
last year.
Correct.
Okay, why didn't we? Well, since it's, our money.
I think I explained that at the deliberative session, that taxes in
You
general,
explained something. It had something to do with
taxes-
the school, and I couldn't get that.
okay, taxes in general, when you look at what you pay for your town portion of taxes compared to what you pay for your school portion of taxes, okay? So why should what the town has taken in for your taxes to fund the town, why should we then use that to offset the fact that your taxes are going up because the school budget has gone up. The town budget goes up minimally, if at all. The school budget goes up much more. In fact, last year, they turned down the police station warrant article. Okay? Said, that's too much money, we're not spending it. We don't want our taxes to go up. They then passed 3 warrant articles on the school warrants that in total were more than the payments would have been for the police station, and the police station would have disappeared after 10 years. The ones for the school continue forever.
Okay.
And that monies on the school was taken out of from their leftover money.
Well, first of all, the they didn't include me, I'll have you know that.
Well, they is the town.
Yes.
So,
And we look at it from our responsibility, fiduciary responsibility, is for the town. And I'm going to reiterate what John is saying, because the year before, when the school budget increased and that budget passed, and we had taken fund balance to stabilize the tax rate, and we're saying, well, why are we doing that? People will continually approve increasing of the school budget if their taxes don't change.
I can understand that particular point, but is this, of all the years I've heard of fund balance used off taxes, this is the first time I've heard that explanation. Is this a new idea, or has this been in the past?
First that you've heard of what
The
explanation?
reason why we won't offset your tax with fund balance is because the school's spending too much money.
Well, that's one reason. That's a logical reason, Brian. The other reason,
I've never heard that before.
well, because you haven't heard of it means you don't do it. I'm sorry, but we don't operate like
No,
that,
but
Brian.
But it's not, but you know what though, this is what I believe, okay? And I know my opinion doesn't go very far, but I feel that we're getting screwed on both ends. The school is certainly screwing, I don't get any problem with believing that, I'll believe that all day long. But I feel that the town is saving the money in the fund balance so they can play with the police station, say, well, we're gonna use so much of that, and then you.
And that was the
and it's
intent.
the police station.
That was the intent, Brian,
So in
clearly.
other words, we're getting screwed from both ends.
Let me ask you a question, Brian. What other town you want to move into that you'd have a lower tax rate?
I don't,
I can
talk,
agree
I don't
with
talk,
Huh?
Stoddard
How
probably,
does 1510 sound?
yeah.
Full value.
Yeah, but even if for some reason we've done somewhat better in this town, I'm not saying that all of a sudden we can do anything we want and it's okay. I'm never gonna believe in that. I'm not gonna, even if the school budget goes down some, I'm not gonna say, oh, I'm all for public schools. They're still outrageous. So the
I
thing
guess
is,
I don't follow your point.
because you tried to say just because we got a lower tax rate, I'm supposed to be happy with everything is the way I'm interpreting it.
no, that's
Well,
not what we
I
said at
what
all.
town do I want to vote to for?
In other words, Brian, we are doing our fiduciary duty to keep the tax rate as low as we can and get the best services out to the residents. That's what we're saying. Are we clear on that? Fund balance, yes, our intent was to have forth another warrant article this year to build a new police station and to take that monies and use it for that. And even if we didn't do that, we've discussed that it wouldn't be used to continually lower the tax rate because that is going to catch up. At some point in time, you're not going to have the fund balance, or we're not going to have the fund balance to lower the tax rate, and then the people are going to get hit with a
Yeah, because this happened a
Largest
couple
spread.
years ago. The school took, they had a surplus. They took, so when they closed down the 2 schools here in town, so they closed down Appleton, they closed down Central. They had a large fund that was the capital reserve account, okay? So instead of taking that capital reserve account and redoing it so that it stayed as a capital reserve account for the new school, they said, okay, we're going to take this $400,000, and I believe it was around that, around $400,000, and we're going to return that to the taxpayers. So they took all $400,000 and they put it to offset the tax rate for the school district. Okay? The next year, when tax rate was set and they didn't have that $400,000, the tax rate skyrocketed on the school portion because they didn't offset it. And then they put in to reform a capital reserve account for the new school. So that's what we're trying to do is we've taxed that money and we want to use it for, warrant articles to help improve the town. But to continually use it to offset the tax rate, like David said, sooner or later it's going to be gone. And then what happens? It's never going to offset the tax rate again. So you have to understand we're looking to use that money to do something positive for the town in the long term.
Okay.
Hang on, Jim.
This is a philosophical question. I'm gonna take the position that I don't care what the school does. The school has different laws about retaining fund balance. It used to be, they couldn't have a fund balance, okay? Now they can do certain things. So the school is in a different mode. When you set the tax rate, you have a fixed amount to raise for the school, the county, and the state. That's fixed. It's part of the big overall budget for your tax rate, but it's there. Those are fixed expenses. Your only variable is the town. And you can play with that thing all day long. Let's assume you don't overspend your budget, okay? Or you come in close, but you don't overspend it. You could say, I'm gonna raise the fund balance here, I'm gonna cut the revenues on motor vehicles, I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna do that. There's all kinds of things you can do, okay? The question is it appropriate to turn your fund balance into the selectmen's capital reserve fund? Okay, that's a valid question. I'm not looking for an answer, but that's what you just described. It becomes a capital reserve for projects that the local government feels the people need. And starts funding them that way. Okay?
But we still have to go to the people to get that money. We can't. We don't just get to take it out.
I'm not calling it a slush fund, but you've created a capital reserve that can be spent from. And then typically what towns do when they have something like that is they try to sell it as, well, it's not going to affect your tax rate. Well, it did affect your tax rate. Whose money is it? It's the people's money. I guess the question is, at what point are we, and I'm not saying you are, but at what point is a town or a village district or something hoarding money, okay? When, in fact, nobody expects you to be able to smooth out the whole tax rate. The only tax rate you should be looking at keeping consistent and keeping, level as you can is your own. You have no control over the others. Don't worry about it. Just send the bill out.
So Jim, DRA has guidelines
Right.
for how much you can retain, and we're within the guidelines.
If you're within, I'm not saying, you're within the guideline, I know that. Okay, if you're within, I'm just talking in a general sense, I'm not talking
Yeah.
specific. If you're within the guidelines, that's fine. Those guidelines, incidentally, are ridiculous on an alternate fiscal year town. They don't mean anything. If you were at the upper end, you'd be hoarding money like crazy, because you don't spend money till after you collect it.
But the point is, Jim,
Yeah.
it's no different than all of us as individuals.
Mm-hmm.
We all know we shouldn't be going out to buy things that we can't afford. And when you have that money that is set aside from money that you haven't spent, and you can use that for something that you need,
Well,
that's the purpose of it. Your statement was, this is philosophical. And that's how I look at it. It's no different. And we need to make sure that we don't look to spend things frivolously.
What I'm saying is, if we're going to truly have a capital reserve fund for a police station, then we should have one.
Well, that's what somebody's position was, and they did a
Right.
petition warrant article on that. So we'll see what the voters think of that. Brian?
Yes, yeah, this, the way I see this, let's just say that, you know, a lot of times things are in one-third, one-third, and one-third. One-third of the people want the police station, 2.5 million, say, one-third doesn't want it, and the third in between might say, I don't really want a $2.5 million, I want a $1 million police station. What you've done by your system is if you build that capital reserve high enough, you will sell the one-third that's in between, because it will drop below that million eventually for taxes rate. They say, oh yeah, fine, and really originally they didn't want a $2.5 million police station, but now you played enough games to get it. Did you understand what I said?
We do,
I
but
do
we-
it, I don't agree with it.
yeah, but we're not even proposing a police station in that dollar frame. We're not looking at a $2 million police station. You know,
Well, this. you're-
that's a warrant art. That's a petition article. Don't even bring that up to the board.
What was last year's?
1.2.
No, let's back up. Back up.
The
It
total
is- It is,
budget.
the total budget is 1.98 or 2 million. Yes, that is what it will cost. But you gotta look at it, cause in people, not last year, the year before, and I said, hey, I'll take responsibility. We didn't explain it well enough. They would say, well, you know, $2 million, you could build something really nice for $2 million. Well, what we didn't explain to them is that, well, that includes taking that building down, redoing the entrance here to have emergency vehicle access. So there was relocating electrical utility lines. There were other costs. And they said, oh, well, we didn't know that. If they didn't know that, we didn't sell it the right way. And we said, well, now we're gonna make sure we present it so that they understand what's in there.
Okay. Go ahead.
I'm done.
Hey,
No, you're not.
For not being on the schedule, I thank you for your time.
Sure. Anytime, feel free to drop by.
I thank you for your time. And I'm, like I said, about the budget hearing, I was trying to be constructive, okay, you know, in my own way. But, you know, I just wanna make sure, you know, you gotta have the T's crossed and I's dotted, or otherwise,
And I appreciate you pointing that out,
you know.
because we always want to make sure.
I was totally surprised when like I said, when I saw I saw two items that jumped out at me. One, I said, well, it's a typo in the warrant article. The shopping list is
Didn't
way
add up.
more than that, so that is a typo,
Yeah.
okay, of sorts. And I know how those things get.
And that's
put
the
in.
one that got corrected, because the DRA told us to correct it.
Right, but the, you know, the other one, you know, and my way of thinking is if I go to a budget hearing and somebody shows me the proposed warrant articles, okay, then if there's gonna be a change, I've always seen selectmen, somebody makes a motion, somebody seconds it, they vote on making the change of what the change is. And that's clean and neat, okay, so, and my suggestion is that you fix the posting and just do it up at the meeting, and that's clean and neat, nobody can catch you for that.
Yeah. Because we got one other one to do on the same thing, it didn't get put in and carried over, so.
Okay, and as far as fund balance is concerned, I was talking in a broad general sense, because the tax rate went down this year. The
Significantly.
tax bill for most people went down this year. It would have been a bad year to get money back. But, and you're right, there's a low and a high end, and then you have to fix into it how much of it's money that's owed you that you don't have in cash, because you kind of live in cash flow. So, it is a bit complex, but I wish you.
We try and look at it in
I
simplistic
wish you
terms.
would publish in the town report the balance sheet, unapproved, unedited, unaudited balance sheet for 12/31 of the current year, of the year just ended. And you were publishing it for the year before.
But we wouldn't even have that yet.
I use the same accounting system you do, and I get it when I push the button.
Oh,
Period 14, and I get it.
I hate to tell you, I would be very hesitant in relying on that versus, I would say, yeah, maybe it's good idea. The auditors, you know, if they had a draft done in time or something, but typically it's not.
Your auditors can't give you a draft on time? can.
Yeah.
Because that's how I have, where I work, I have a very short time frame because we're an alternate fiscal year town. We don't end until June 30th.
Oh.
We have to have this thing in.
Did you
September
change that?
1st.
Did you change that?
Huh?
Did you change that, or have they always been that way?
They changed it 2 years before I got there.
I'd be curious how it goes over with residences
They love it.
but to pay the big bill the first year, to pick up for the year and a half.
The town tax rate's below the county rate. They didn't notice a difference.
Hmm.
Ringe did though, didn't they?
I've heard quite a few towns that it's,
Milford took a big hit. I had a buddy, because it escrows his taxes, $150 more a month on his escrow.
What happens is, in order to get there, it doesn't affect all your other items, but to get there, you have to take the town portion, and you have to build an 18-month budget.
right?
Because right now, you collect in June for what you spent from January to June. Okay?
Yeah.
And if you're alternate fiscal year, you collect the money in May and June for what you're gonna start spending on July 1. It's wonderful for cash flow. And it does work a lot
Yeah,
better.
but most people, I think, would frown on it because of the bullet they would have to bite that first year.
Yeah, and then what it does, it saves towns that borrow in anticipation of
Yeah,
taxes.
yeah.
It saves that, but if you're not borrowing or borrowing
Yeah.
very little today with the low rates, I wouldn't change, you know.
Yeah, I was just curious.
Yeah, they did it a number of years ago, and, it's the one smart thing they did.
I think the only reason why I would have even considered it is because of the school being on the June to July, and where they're looking for increased payments after their increased budget gets approved, and we say, well, we can't start paying increased school bills because we're still on the old budget.
But actually, the school's not affected. The only thing that's affected is the town piece. If you study it carefully, the town piece. The school,
Right, but it's what the town needs to pay to the school. It's
you're
our
you're
bill.
already collecting the money for the school.
Mhm.
So in the January to June portion, you're collecting money to give to the school, okay? Which you have the same way we are, the same way the town I work for is.
All
There's no
and you're looking when you change. I'm saying when we stay as we are now, that's when we run into the problem, as we are now. Because our receipts are in April and December.
I understand that, but, and I have the same thing, because I get very low on money in early May. But it's for the town, okay? All right, and then once I get that infusion of money, I'm good to go.
Yeah.
But I'm getting the money up front for the town, and that makes everything else flow better.
All right, we gotta move on.
See ya.
Thanks. Deliberative session discussion.
Yep, and the reason I put that on there, I just want to make sure, leading up to next week, that you have everything that you need.
You guys all set? You know what you're presenting?
Yep.
What are you presenting, Bert? Why don't you share with us?
Oh, me, I'm just gonna talk about a police station.
That's it?
Oh, and noise ordinance. But, you know, there may be a few surprises in there, who knows? Depends what comes up.
You gonna present the budget?
No.
John?
If you need my help with something, let me know, David. You know, I'll be more than happy to help.
We just need to, I'd like to meet the night before to go through it.
session?
I am not available on the 3rd of February. I'll be out of town.
Yeah, I can meet.
Yeah, it won't be long, half an
Yeah.
hour.
That's fine.
What time would you like to get together?
Maybe 5 o'clock,
Yeah, that'd be fine.
5:15,
Okay.
that work?
Yep, that's for me.
And are we canceling our meeting on the 4th, which our normal selectmen's meeting?
Well, we could meet briefly before deliberative session if you'd like to take care of anything, or
No?
No.
We come in, sign,
starting
and that's it.
in the day?
Now-
Okay.
I'm assuming you've contacted the school.
So the school has confirmed both the 4th and March 10th
Okay.
for us, and all he's asking, the facilities managers is asking, because he's apparently new to that position as well, so he's asking what we need, so I was gonna get together with Jessica tomorrow to make sure she has everything she needs for the 10th, and as well as for balloting.
For the deliberative session, though, I need to set up the PowerPoint projector,
So,
plug in
yep,
microphones, which they
So
should be
audio.
used to that.
Yeah, that's normally,
But usually it's when it's
Yeah.
time to hook up.
and actually I'm
that
trying to remember whether the,
He did, he
library-
had said,
yeah, but I don't know if he's there again.
oh, you mean the guy that
Yeah,
handled
did
it?
it last time, I don't know. But yeah,
Uh,
it's the same setup that they, whichever setup they're gonna use for their deliberative session, it's the same setup for us.
okay. Same
It's like-
as school.
Yeah, it's like 4 microphones, 2 on each table, and
They usually have you sitting up on the stage?
Yeah, yeah,
And where would you like me to be?
here on the stage.
Am
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Front and center.
I catching the tomatoes?
You say, explain it, Scott.
something
Right.
before.
While we're talking deliberative session, we'll talk, what, just bear with me 1 second. Were you able to find that revenue report? It's not what, Linda prepares. These are one of those, I don't know if it's an MS6, I think it's an MS6 is what we do as the, estimated revenue. Usually it's, I think, like around October, November, we submit it for what we're,
Okay. I'll get that for you. I mean, on what DRA had on their website was the 1.6 million and change that I,
do you remember what,
Yeah.
let me see if I see what that date was.
but that's what's on their website is our estimated revenues.
Was it
As I was, so
for
when
2019?
well, that, they're projecting for 2020. So I enter all the budget information, the way the system works, it gives you what their they calculate your estimated revenues for 2020, and it was the 1.6 million and change that I used to earlier today. If my memory was better, I could have that number up the top.
We don't want, we don't, no, we don't,
But
I'm
if
just
my
trying to
memory isn't
open
that
up the
good.
report just to see
Yeah.
if,
Yeah, the report that Linda gives us is everything, all revenues excluding property tax revenues from tax collectors'
see,
office.
this is that report.
Right. Yeah, so that's,
Normally up here, it's like one of those state funds,
Is
what
that
I'm used to seeing.
Okay,
No, this is
No,
what comes
that's-
off of our.
Okay, our thing,
Yeah.
right,
alright.
okay, let me,
Uh,
there
but-
are
but-
filings, yeah.
But this, I may be able to extrapolate the numbers off it here.
Okay.
I'm just curious is, what year was this for?
This is for 2019.
Okay,
I confirmed that with Linda.
Okay, okay.
That was for the calendar year 2019 through December 31st. Other than property tax revenues from.
okay, so this is actuals, these are actuals.
Actuals.
So then, the one that we do in October is for 20, what we're estimating our revenues are gonna be, that's the
Okay.
one I'm looking at.
Okay,
Because on that PowerPoint, it has, it will have like 2019 actuals and then 2020 estimated.
okay, all right, let me look for that.
Okay.
Yep.
The other question, John, was on previous presentations I've got on historically. We used to have a slide for each budget with a blurb, you know, went up, went down, why. I noticed on the 2019 one, I think it was, or 18, we didn't have that.
You mean the one last year or the year before? Because I know one year it wasn't there because I think you threw something together just in case the
Oh, was
budget
that
committee.
The budget committee?
So you had something ready in case they didn't in case they didn't present their budget, and they didn't present their budget. The year before, I thought someone had something prepared,
Let me see.
but I
know
don't remember.
emailed it to myself here, but it's not in my selectmen's folder.
Let me look on the
Let's-
server to see if anybody.
I've got them here.
Yeah, I don't think anyone would have sent it in, because like the year I presented as budget committee chair, I had it on my computer. The following year I wasn't on, and I don't know who presented because I think I was at the meeting, but I don't think I was on the board. And then, or maybe I was.
Okay. This is what I've got going on now. And this was taking the one before and just changing it.
Yeah.
But when we get down to what's before this? See, like here, there were two slides, and that's why I think I deleted the others. One, principal notes and bonds, because it's one of the, this budget represents the cost the town pays on the bond for closing the landfill. Then we went right to that one, and the interest was the other one. But I noticed that we didn't have all the other budgets, and I don't know. I think we should have them, and I
Mhm.
just didn't remember why they wouldn't have been in here. And this was
I think it was because
19s.
yeah, I think this was
of
because the budget would not have been something we presented.
Okay,
So we spoke about it just off of handouts, but we would not have presented the budget.
so then I'll
Make
put in
one,
the
yeah.
slides for each one.
Yeah,
then.
because I think
Okay.
we're even questioning, like, since it isn't really our budget, could we even present it? And I think we presented off of paper, but we didn't because they didn't even come up on stage. But I think the
Okay.
year before, I think they did present something. I think, no,
No, no.
I couldn't remember.
They've never presented.
I couldn't remember if Brian had given you something and you put it on your computer and put it up the year before.
I think I had asked him, are you going to present? And I said, I'll put one together if you want.
Yeah,
And I did, but they didn't.
they didn't present. Yeah.
Nobody showed up. Right, that's all I want to know, so I'll,
Yeah, because it was
Work
2
on
years
that.
ago. One of the members showed up, a vote went through, and they got up and left. And then last year, none of them showed up at all. They didn't even attend.
Yeah. All right. Anything else we need to,
Did we want to discuss this?
uh,
Because
I had spoken with Scott, I spoke with Pete. As far as I'm concerned, this is not done correctly. There's no review. Knowing that, I told Peter, I says, you know, town of New Ipswich is, it's either 90 or 100 pounds a square foot snow load. I said, they're all quoting you 50 or 40. I says, you know, what's the fabric weight? There's,
okay.
he's
Yeah,
gotta do
and then
snow work.
my other question was, he's looking at it, and I thought what the plan was he was going to get what was left
Mhm.
after the lights.
Correct,
So how can we even write a PO for the whole thing? Okay,
correct.
all right. I just want to make sure I was on the same
Yeah,
page,
we're
and
on
that's
the same
really why I
page.
want to discuss it. Is
Yeah.
that, you know, that we're all on the same page, and I don't, like you said, you understand the construction piece of it. I was just looking at it, go, wait, we didn't even say we were giving them
Right.
all the money.
And, you know, when you look at some of these costs, it's almost the money that we had
Right.
total, so.
Yeah.
Any way we can prioritize getting the RFP for that lighting, so that then we will know what we're gonna be able to,
We can certainly put it on the front burner.
okay.
Yep.
Did that, the other thing I had on tonight's agenda was, I always forget the gentleman's name, but, I'll call 11 Temple Road, was supposed to get
Yeah.
back to us,
He did.
did he?
Yeah, so, may have been in your absence,
That's
but he did stop by sometime within the last 2 to 3 weeks to say that he has decided to move forward with the project as he originally had stated when he purchased the property. So he's gonna do it himself, and he's completing the engineering on it. That's where we're at.
Any deadlines?
He did not give a deadline. We can certainly float one out there to see if he's able to meet it.
Yeah, I would at least like to see something happening to the building.
Yeah.
I mean that's a piece. I mean, it's just right now. I mean, we're talking about the burned out property, but I mean that one's as bad, if not worse, because it gives shelter to animals or anyone who's looking to squat.
Yeah, so, we can certainly put a date out there. Is there a date you would
Well,
like to?
we gave him, I don't know if you saw the paperwork, but when I think we
Originally
sold it for like $500, based on you will have this,
done by, I think it was
Yeah.
December 31st of,
whatever
Whatever
the
year it
period
was.
of time we had in there.
and then between him running into the title
Yep.
issue on the property.
Yep.
That kind of delayed the project, and then he had some other issues.
Well, it
he
was that
discussed with us last time.
We were looking for a certain date, and then one of the items was that, well, we're coming upon winter. I said, okay, so
Yeah.
we'll extend it to here. So I think where we are right now, that he's got he's had clear title for a while. If you look at that
I think it
same
was since
duration
August,
of
yeah.
time we've had, if we are in that same window,
Yeah,
you know,
so I think his intention is, based on my conversation with him, as soon as the weather kind of breaks this year, is when he's gonna get started, so.
but I think if we could just get it documented, that would be
Okay,
the best way.
all right, I will,
You agree?
That's fine.
Bart had sent through an email about meeting with the state,
they would like to schedule a date.
and I think last week I said I'd have to find out where we are on pricing, which I've gotten pricing from Hutter to see. That's what he had asked us to do, so.
Right,
For me, the further out that they can schedule it, because I know for myself, this week and next week, I'm pretty straight out, but if they can,
Well, they said we were trying to stay within 8 weeks.
8
of
weeks.
the last date,
Yeah.
which was, what, just 2-3 weeks ago?
yeah,
So,
that's why I'm thinking if anything after,
late
the week of
February,
the
early March?
17th, 24th, I'm gone March 9th, until the 20th, so those 2 weeks I won't be.
So week of 2/17, 2/24. What about March, the week of March 2nd?
That's fine.
Okay. 4/3/2. Okay.
All good?
All right, I will try to get that set up with Bart.
Got that email from the, Southampton Chamber of Commerce about that meeting again, like we had gone to the last one.
Yeah, I didn't see it.
I thought you were on it.
Really? Yeah, I didn't
Well,
see
I
it. Yeah.
thought since
Yeah.
you went last time, she was
Yeah.
trying to get people and last call. Personally, I didn't get much out of that last one, so I
Yep.
didn't sign up to go again, so I didn't know if,
Okay.
did
Yeah, I
you
didn't-
see much?
So, it's really geared more toward businesses than municipalities. I mean, they like to have municipal participation. It was, when I was in Wilton, it was a little bit more relevant because we were making a huge economic development effort. So we were engaging with them on a regular basis. Doesn't hurt to go to hear what's going on in the region. I was actually more interested in what the director from the National Regional Planning Commission had to say. I think there was more content in there than any other part of what we heard that day. And honestly, I haven't had a chance to go over to the Southwest to really see what they're doing. But my general impression is that they don't have the depth on some subjects that the other regional planning commission does. So, just from what I have seen so far. So, but I have to get over there to really understand what their capabilities are. Considering I think they all get funding from the state to
Yeah.
support us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I need to understand more about what is different about each planning commission and why some can deliver certain services and others can't. And it might just be a case of who's on their staff at the time and what level of knowledge and expertise they have that may be driving what programs they can support.
And I'm assuming their funding is probably based on population or something.
So, yeah, and obviously Nashua has Nashua.
Yeah.
So, and honestly, most of their programs are geared toward Nashua. But even the smaller towns, like Wilton, that were out on the fringe, did benefit. They did quite a bit of work for us. They were a good resource for us. So I just have to get to know the staff over in Keene a little bit better to see what we can leverage.
Yeah, good. I got a invitation here from Jennifer Kiley, who is the ATC director over at Conval. And for those parents and students that might be interested, they're going to be having an open house at Conval on Sunday, February 16th, from 1 to 3 p.m. They're going to be, it's an open house. They offer career and technology education programs such as automotive tech, building trades, business, careers in education, computer networking, computer programming, digital photo and video, firefighting and EMT, graphic design, manufacturing with optional welding component and pre-engineering. And they're saying parents and students learn about opportunities to help students become career and college ready. So anyone that wants to go, it's an open invitation. And again, that's Sunday, February 16th from 1 to 3 at the Applied Tech Center at Conval. I think there was one more I thought we had. I think it was just the one from Dot.
Do you have any?
One thing I wanted to bring up is inadvertently, there are times when two selectmen may be out of town during a certain occasion. We need the paperwork signed by two or more selectmen, or we need to set up a protocol where perhaps Scott can sign in lieu of us with prior approval. That March period, we're both gonna be out of town, you and myself.
When are you gone?
I'm gone, I believe, from the 12th to the 23rd of March.
So that
So there's at least one period in there
17th.
where there's
we
no
both get
signature. And,
Yeah.
you know, it can happen that, you know, somebody's in the hospital, whatever it takes, not available. I
You
think,
check the RSAs and see.
I don't think there's a problem if we set up a protocol in advance.
I'm saying if he can check the RSAs
Yeah.
with New Hampshire Municipal, somebody.
Yeah, I'll, that should be an
Yeah.
easy,
Yeah.
an easy answer. I don't think
Yeah.
it's a problem, but I'll get clarification on that.
Yeah. I'd hate to do something and then, no, you're not allowed to do that.
Yeah, no, understand.
Anything else?
That's it.
John? Non-public
tax deeding.
tax deeding.
Motion to go into non-public under RSA 91A32C. Matters which if discussed in public would likely affect adversely the reputation of any person other than a member of the public.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.